Hello, my name is Diane Potter, Clinical Risk Advisor. Reporting of Lerns is open and easy. You can find all 4 forms to report a safety incident, an issue, an excellent event or a safety improvement idea on the intranet, and no login is needed. In this short video, we're going to follow the process of what happens when a Learn form is submitted.
So my name is Deanne Green and I'm a Senior Healthcare Assistant in Main Outpatients. It's important to report instances to make sure that our hospital is safe for our patients and our staff. I would submit a safety incident learn form for any different reasons, including patient safety incidences such as falls in the department or safeguarding concerns, transport issues, equipment faults or failures, or incorrect patient details on documentation. It's better to report an incident than it is not to, so that we don't repeat the same mistakes, and it's really easy to do. So if I can do it, you can, and together we can make a difference for our patients and staff.
Hello, my name's Paula Showbrook and I'm the Chief Nursing Officer at University Hospitals Dorset. So today I just wanted to think about what we do when we receive a learn. So when you report an incident on the wards, what happens to that? Because you may just think, well, I've done that and what was the point? It's really important that we can share what happens across our organisation. And when you put in an incident report, we gather all of that information. It gets pulled together so that we can understand the learning. And importantly, we can share that across the trust so that we can prevent incidents happening again. One of my roles is reporting this to the Board of Directors because we need to understand what's going on across the trust. And this can be positive incidents or perhaps incidents where things go wrong and we can put things in place to help prevent this happening again. So I'd encourage you, please put in Learns. It really is important. It helps us do things better for our patients and for our staff. And it's a really important role and responsibility for you and for us.
Hello, my name is Alison O'Donnell and I'm the Chief Medical Officer here at University Hospitals Dorset. One of the really key parts of my role is that I chair scoping meetings and I chair panel meetings, which are part of our being a learning organisation. Scoping meetings and panel meetings happen where something has been raised as an incident. And the reassurance I want to give everybody is that these processes are not focused on people. They are not focused on blame. They are learning opportunities where we check and challenge whether our processes, whether our pathways are actually fit for purpose and whether they've let our staff down in doing the right thing. So they are not blaming, and I'd really encourage people to come along and actually join a panel meeting to see how they run or to join a scoping meeting to see how they run. Scoping meetings we do really early, and so quite often we don't have all the information that we need. We've got relatively early information, and what we're trying to decide at that meeting is this an incident that looks like it is serious enough to be investigated as a serious incident? We then try to decide where that sits. So is this something that is just got learning for the directorate or for the service, in which case it will be a directorate RCA? If we think there is potentially learning that might go across the organisation or across services, then that we might use that as an internal SI, and that is where we will then have a panel meeting to look at developing things like the action plans, which you've heard about elsewhere. If we think a patient has suffered moderate harm, and that can be defined in all sorts of different ways. It's not necessarily about them having extra operations. It might be they've stayed in hospital longer or they've suffered psychological harm. Then we may look to escalate that out to the CCG and out into the national reporting system, and we call that an external SI. The main thing about that is that it gives us a really tight time frame where we have to work to things, and we have to complete things within 60 days. The other group that you will have heard of are never events, and people get a bit confused about never events because they think that all sorts of things are a never event, but actually it's a really prescribed list of 15 different things that where we have a duty to report them outside, and that's where people say if all your processes work, that should never happen. But we've actually realised that a lot of these, even with good systems, it is really difficult to prevent. So when we have a scoping meeting, we will decide what level of investigation it is. We will then decide what some of the key lines of inquiry are. So what are the key questions we need to answer? That's not exhaustive and other things might come up, but what are the things to start off? We will make sure we've done everything we ought to do around duty of candour, and if that hasn't been completed in the way that we'd expect, then we will make sure that somebody's nominated to do that, and we'll make sure that that's fed back to let us know how that's going to happen. And that's to make sure that if families or patients have got questions about what's happened to them, that we answer them in the investigation, and we also make sure that we've decided how we're going to feed those answers back in a way that is going to be easy for them to understand and where they will get assurance about our processes. We want to make sure that if any of our staff need support, whether that's just because it's been quite traumatising being involved in a negative event, or whether it's because they actually need some education, we'll make sure we put some processes around that and some names to make sure that that happens. And if there's immediate learning where we think, actually, you know what, this is such a significant safety issue, we're not convinced that the systems are working properly, we will put out immediate safety notices into the organisation so that people know what is happening. And when we come to the panel, hopefully we've had an investigation that's gone through a timeline, that has answered all of our key lines of inquiry and anything else that's come up. And what we will do is we will discuss that as a group to see where that sits and how that feeds into a series of recommendations. And importantly, we can only make recommendations. We can't make services do them, but actually we can say, we think you ought to look at this and see whether this is possible. And that is the cornerstone of us being a learning organisation. I sit in a lot of these panels, and the good thing is that what it really helps me to see is where there are themes beginning to emerge, where I'm seeing things happening more than once, or where I'm seeing things happening in different areas, where I think actually there's what's going on in that area because I've seen 3 or 4 different incidents. They might not be the same, but it just tells me maybe there's a team who are struggling a bit. So really important part of what we do to make sure that we get better every day, one of our core values, and to make sure that we're supporting staff to do the right thing.
So following the serious incident panel, one of the things that we'll do is pull together an action plan, and this means pulling together all of the things that we talk about through the panel so that we can then make sure that we're addressing them appropriately and making sure we're putting in the support required for all of our staff. That action plan will also be shared with the board, so again we can aggregate that learning.